Okay, we're live. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Woman to Woman. Today our conversation is Pride. It's much more than a parade and a rainbow sticker. So I'm really excited to be here. For those of you who don't know, and I don't know everything, but I've done a little research, and I know that the Pride parades were an outcome of the Stonewall riots in 1969 in New York City. And the purpose to creating the parade was to bring together community. Oftentimes, and also to honor the history of the movement. Now, in order to bring together community, we have to understand each other. And in order to understand each other, we need to talk to each other and do some research so that our conversations are meaningful and authentic. And so it's been 52 years since Stonewall. And I personally feel that Pride goes beyond and means so much more than a parade now. And it's really exciting that people are wanting to know more about this. So today, we're joined by an incredible panel of guests for a conversation that I hope will enlighten, will provide you with tools so that you can develop empathy and be a true ally to any person you know or run across or meet in some way in the LGBTQIA community. And so I'm going to start by introducing my guest. Now, anyone who has watched me on Women to Women knows I don't like to give long bios. I prefer people to introduce themselves. They know themselves much better than the words on a piece of paper. And so I'm going to start with, everyone knows me. Hi, I'm Kimberly. But I'm going to start with Precious. Precious, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kimberly, for having me. My name is Precious Dingo. I am a UX designer at a healthcare company. Locally, I'm running for school board for New Albany, and I'm also the mom to a bisexual teenage son.
Thank you. Alex?
Hi, my name is Alex Fox. I am a public relations practitioner, and I also formed Pride New Albany in 2019 here in New Albany, Ohio.
Great, thank you. David?
Hi, this is David Glisson. I also am a resident of New Albany for about the last 25 years. I am an attorney. I am a public defender for juveniles for the county, and I met Alex a few years ago, and she and I got together, and with her help, Pride New Albany has taken off, and we're just doing great things here in the town.
That's true. Alice.
Hi, my name's Alice. I'm a 17-year-old at New Albany High School. I'm a part of the Synergy course class, and I'm recently new to New Albany and Ohio.
So let me just stop for a second. So Alice is not really telling the whole story. So Alice is new to the high school. She's been here for about 10 months. But what really, why I invited Alice to this conversation is that I went to see the Synergy presentations last week. And Alice did an extremely in-depth review of LGBTQIA, POC, and rights, and how oftentimes their rights, it's just, sometimes it's problematic. And just the whole adding the layer of race and how we work together, which we'll talk a little bit about later in our conversation. But I just thought she did such an amazing job that this would be a great opportunity to have a youth point of view. So thank you for joining us out.
Thank you,
Karen, of course.
Hello,
Karen.
everyone. I'm Karen Gamba. I'm the executive director and co-founder of Women Building Women, a national nonprofit that serves transgender women of color, women who are returning citizens or formerly incarcerated women of color, and at-risk male youth. We partner these communities with women mentors in professional settings because we're trying to provide educational and true career opportunities, and also breaking barriers through corporate America to create true diversity and inclusion initiatives at their firms.
And just so you know, I know it seems like everyone's from New Albany. Karen is in San Francisco on her way to Hong Kong. So she stopped her layover so she would do this with us today. So thank you very much. So we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to just jump right in. And my first question is for Alex and or David. Either one can take this one. But so knowledge is the source of truth, right? Facts, data. So do you mind giving us a little more information? I did a very, very brief introduction at the beginning of Pride, but could you share a little bit more about the importance of Pride and the Stonewall riots, please?
Alex, you or me?
Do you want to start, and then I'll jump in after?
Historically, as you said earlier, Stonewall was a bar located in New York City, and back in 1969, it was raided by the police department, and it was raided a number of nights over and over. Clearly, this was a bar that was a haven for the gay transgender community. And after a number of nights of being raided, a crowd formed because a number of people were arrested, because back in those days, it was illegal just to be gay, to dress gay, to dress any way other than what were the norms at the time. And the crowd ultimately started throwing, I think, bottles and pennies, as it's stated, and that caused the police to start arresting, which caused things to get a little more heated. And ultimately, after that night, I think there was such support for the gays, transgender individuals, that they started kind of showing up at Stonewall each night. And ultimately, 1 year later, on the anniversary of that night, back in June of 1969, the first Pride Parade came about. And it was, I think, marching from Stonewall, which is in Lower Manhattan, all the way up to Central Park. And along the way, they kept gaining support. And so more and more people were in the parade and marching up to Central Park. And that's how it started. And that's kind of where we are today with Pride parades. Wow.
Okay. And then so the parade became a movement, though. It became beyond that, right?
It did. I think what it did, the significance of Stonewall is not only that it kind of was the inspiration for the first parade, but it really was a groundswelling of support, and for individuals in the LGBTQIA community to realize that there was something bigger going on, and that they were part of a bigger community. So it really was the forming of the LGBT community, as well as the Pride Parade.
That's right. And I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but just a few months after the riots is when the first LGBTQ groups formally founded, including a couple of media outlets. They were all born out of the people who stood up and protested what was happening at Stonewall. So born from that were formally organized groups. And then starting in 1970 were the very first parades. And now last year during the pandemic, there was a virtual global Pride with 500 participating organizations from around 90 countries. It might have been 91 countries. It's hard to find exact statistics, but a lot. And so I think Pride means a lot of things to a lot of people. To some, it means giant parades and massive celebrations. To others, it means activism and political rights. But we're grateful, Kimberly, that you're bringing up the history and the impetus for it, because that truly is how and where it all began. It started with a moment. And it was a real moment that happened with real people who made choices that night and that week, and then 6 months later when they formed their groups. Because in the 1950s and the 1960s, this country was a very different place, and things that are accepted now were not accepted then. And when you look at Stonewall, that's the birth of what we're talking about.
Well, I think there are things that are accepted, and I'm so happy that they are now, that weren't accepted 5 years ago, or, you know, in our lifetimes. And you know, and I know Alice is 17, but the rest of us have been around for a little while, and what's happening now is just, it's amazing. But I think understanding the catalyst is so important for any movement, right? And the moment becomes a movement. And I think that's an important message. So thank you for the history and giving us a little more background on that. Karen, as we talk about the moments that become movements, can you give us a little more introduction? Like what was your introduction to the challenges of transgender women, or the community that Women Building Women supports, that made you say, I have to do something? This is really important. What was that moment?
I mean, that's a great question, Kimberly. And it's like you said before, we are constantly educating ourselves. We're learning new data every single day, which is important because you can never stop learning about anything that's happening in our world today. And the long and short of how we discovered the communities we were going to serve through Women Building Women happened in layers. We were looking at how we could be most helpful through the contacts we had made in corporate America. And it started simply with who was at the table. It started with, first, there weren't enough women at the table. Then the layer was peeled back. There weren't enough women of color at the table. Another layer revealed there weren't enough women who were from the LGBTQIA+ community, transgender, and so on and so on and so on. And then we just went into deep research and analysis and looked at some statistics. And the statistics that transgender women of color are facing are some of the most staggering and heart-wrenching statistics I've ever seen in my life. And these statistics are not reported as openly as they should be. So, for instance, in 2020, in a span of 9 days, 6 transgender women of color were murdered. And these were tiny little notes on page 15 of a newspaper, maybe. People aren't aware of what's happening in these communities. Transgender people are facing some of the highest homelessness rates. They are finding a very, very hard time to find employment, and are just facing really, really staggering odds in trying to find any kind of quality of life. And so Women Building Women rallied around this particular community because we felt we could really provide the most support using the community we had built. And I think that in order to create the most change, you sometimes have to take on some of the toughest challenges. And it has been a challenge. It has been an uphill battle. Every single day is an uphill battle. And I think every single panelist we have here today understands that, because the mindset is shifting, but in my opinion, it's shifting very slowly. And in the meantime, as companies are trying to make decisions about what to do, people are suffering. And so we really need to push this forward so much quicker. So that was the reason why we took on these particular communities, because we really felt this is where the most help that we could provide was needed. And we needed to take on something where we felt we could really take on that challenge head on. And we have an amazing community of people who are completely unafraid to advocate and be there for these communities. So I'm just happy to be here and share this platform with all of you as well and spread the word. It's so important.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my connection to the LGBTQIA community goes very deeply. Several members of my family, and I actually shared that experience that I had a transgender cousin. She was in my wedding, lovely person, had gone through a lot of changes as a teen and had come out on the other side of it, had gone back to school and decided to be a counselor for other transgender teens. The day before he was to start his job in Philadelphia, was walking with his girlfriend and was beaten to death because he was transgender. And so anything I can do to educate, the smallest thing just means so much to me, because ignorance and hatred is all because of lack of knowledge, I think, and lack of understanding. So I think what you're doing is just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Alice, this question is for you, my dear. So you did an amazing research project, right? Really amazing. Like, so much information. My head couldn't even, I felt like my head was going to explode. It was so well done. So how did you land on that subject? And share with us the 3 most important points of research that you want everyone to know.
So when I was deciding my topic, I was actually thinking about doing it about victim blaming and about women that were being like murdered and raped and like over-sexualized. And another classmate, Zion, she was like, well, then maybe you can add in like transgender women because they were being killed a lot, like just. And then it reminded me of a video that I saw. I'm pretty sure it was on TikTok. It was a video that this person was saying that a transgender woman shouldn't be able to play on an all-girls team. And I was like, maybe I should do that. And then focus it on people of color, because I know people of color, especially in the LGBTQIA community, face a lot of struggles. So yeah, and the 3 things would be, one would be that with my interview with Akena Munye, my uncle's friend, she's a lesbian, she's a doctor in Alaska. She told me the story of when during a pride parade, her wife was almost like, she got into a fight with a bunch of lesbians because they thought she was transgender. And I was just so shocked that lesbians were trying to fight her because they thought she was transgender during a pride parade. And I was just like, that contradicts each other. And I was, and then she said something that you can't choose who you're allies with. Like, you can't choose a certain part of the community to be for and be for against. So you can't just like choose who you like and who you hate. You have to be for the whole community, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, for everything. And another thing I would say is that educating yourself, not only yourself and other people, educating yourself on the meaning of the community, what they go through, how to be a better ally, what you can do to help a person in the community or help another person be acquainted with the community, maybe change their mind, maybe. Another thing would be, my third thing would be for the people. I remember when I was presenting, it was like laws and bills, and I said something along the lines that we can have all these laws and bills that help the LGBTQ community, but those bills are set for us to follow. And if we as people don't follow them, then those laws are useless. So us as people, us as human beings, need to do our part for the community, because we're the ones that are hurting them, not the laws. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's see. So let's just stay there, because your paper was on POC LGBTQIA. Now, I have heard from several people, several of my friends, several people I know, that the white LGBTQ community does not feel supported by the POC LGBTQ community. David or Alex, is that something that you can speak to? Do you feel that? Have you heard that? Is that something that we need to bring to the surface so we can talk about, so that we can start to move beyond that and maybe do some deep diving on why we feel like that's happening?
Is that you or me, Alex?
No, that's you. That's you. We spoke about this earlier today, and we chatted about this particular question, and what David said was so poignant that I would love him to speak.
Okay. So I think as individuals and as human beings, black, white, whatever color, I like to think that there are more things that bind us together than really separate us. And yes, we have issues from time to time, but at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all just trying to make a living and to have the best life that we can. I think one issue that does pull us apart from time to time is religion. And, I think everyone is religious in their own way, whether they practice it by going to church or just by saying that prayer in your head at night or whenever you feel you need comforted. And I feel like religion has failed me as an individual, and I think it's failed many in the gay community. I feel that one thing that is not helping people of color and perhaps what white people feel this way, if they do, is I think religion is what can pull us apart. And by that, I think we need to bring some of these pastors, these clergy into the 21st century. I think that they can do harm. And it's not just the black pastors and the black churches. We have the Catholic Church, which is not doing the gays any good. We have the Southern Baptist, we have the Mormon Church. And I'm not trying to pick on any religion or any church. I'm just suggesting that I think we need to really look at religion, and I think religion really needs to progress. And I think there are many religions that have, but I also think that there are some that really are not. And I think that is driving and has driven a wedge by keeping the gay, by letting the gay community come together. And so I think religion to me is one of the biggest wedges of why perhaps white people do not feel supported by people of color. And I think it's because of religion. That's one point. And I'm open to any other points because I don't know that it's a one issue or a 1 point issue. But that's what I think of when I think of why there isn't that support, or why people think there isn't as much support as what they would hope.
Does anyone else want to take that? I know that, growing up in a Baptist church with, father was a deacon and grandfather was trustee, grandmother was, church clerk, like just growing up there. And there are so many gay men in the church, but they never acknowledged that they were gay. Like, and as a child, you don't know what it is. But then as I danced professionally. So most of my friends were gay. So I'd come to church and I said, I remember saying something about a gentleman. Someone said, he's such a good guy. He should get married. And I said, well, is that legal? And they looked at me like I was crazy. Like I think I was 17. And they were like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, he would be marrying a man, wouldn't he? And they were like, what was wrong with you? What are you talking about? And I said, well, he's gay. They're like, he's not gay. Why would you say such a terrible, mean thing? I'm like, I'm not being mean. He's a friend of mine. I'm just saying, like, is that, I didn't know that was a secret. I'm sorry. But it's like that whole idea that you have to live this other life in order to be accepted, because in the Black church, there are no gay people. There are no gay men. There are no gay men. And if they're, women, and this, I'm saying this where I came from, I don't know, hopefully we've evolved a little bit, not 100%, but I know that there's still some work to do. But, and then lesbians, if they lived with women, they were just, best friends, roommates, and so that whole idea of being true to yourself and not having to live undercover, that's difficult. I can't imagine having to wake up and be what someone else wants you to be every day. And so I can see what you're saying from that point of view. I hope other people understand it from that point of view and have some empathy, because I'm sure it's not a situation where, no, I don't want to be supportive. I think it's more so a situation of, wow, I have to do some self-preservation. I haven't gotten there yet. How do I support someone and not, put myself out there? So it's complicated. Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
I just want to add that this conversation is very similar to what we're facing with corporate America at this time. There is this white collar idea of what a corporation should be and what a corporation should look like. And instead of companies creating safe spaces for a diverse group of people, there's still a lot of exclusion happening. So, if it's happening in a place that's supposed to be as safe as your church or your community, of course, it's going to run and trickle down into how businesses are being run. So this is such a deep conversation where we need to change things from within the community out, where those giant corporations out there are going to stop feeling afraid of who's being portrayed on their website so that their clients don't get alarmed. Because we need to start creating safe spaces everywhere, not just in our churches, not just in our businesses, not just in our major corporations, not just sticking a pride flag on your Instagram and feel like you've done your part. I've been very adamant and outspoken about this. It's so much more than a corporation doing a corporate responsibility initiative where they're making a donation to a pride organization. What are they actually doing to create a safe space within their corporations? Are they educating their employees about these discussions? Are they having these types of discussions? Are they trying to change people's minds? Are they trying to bridge these gaps? So I think, David, you're spot on about how much work lies ahead, because if people aren't going to feel safe in spaces like their local churches, their local communities, how can they go out there and get jobs and feel safe? Discrimination, unfortunately, is still everywhere, lurking in the wings. So these discussions are very important.
Yeah, the whole idea of having a safe space is so important. I talk about this. I live in New Albany too, and I say, everyone should be safe in their community. And people say, oh, well, New Albany is a very safe place. And I'm not talking about someone sticking you up or taking your property. I'm just talking about just the safety of being who you are, safe in your school, right? Safe walking down the street or grabbing a Starbucks, safe being who you are. You should feel safe and secure in that. So I think we could talk about this for a long time. I know that we only have an hour. So I'm going to jump to you, Precious. You as a parent of a queer teen, I think the way you've handled it, how you felt about, Nate's, when he told you, if you could share that journey, I think it'd be very helpful to some of the parents who are tuning in.
Sure. Now, my journey with learning about the queer community started academically before I even had children. So it's a little different. I went to a Catholic high school, and we had religion class in Catholic schools. And one of the lessons was that gay was bad, and you were going to hell. And I remember my head shooting up and looking around like, did I miss part of the lesson? Like, is that the thing we're talking about? And I was in the 90s, and I didn't think I knew anyone gay. I don't think I'd ever had a discussion about it. But I just knew it didn't feel right. So I went home and did a little social experiment and asked my mom what she would do if I came out and said I was gay. She had a very stereotypical Black woman response to it. And I said, okay, so you are not a fan of that. Let me learn a little bit more about this, because if that's the reaction in my loving household, to this woman who's supported everything I've ever done, despite everything else, and maybe I should learn more. So in college, I took gay and lesbian literature classes. I was typically the only straight person, which also always made people ask questions. So I started my route that way. So there's always been sort of education involved in it. But I'm still a mom, and a mom who heard that her child, whose child came out of the closet. Although starting when he was very, very young, whenever we had talked about sex, I always included every gender I could think of, to the point where when he was 10, he was like, Mom, I'm not gay. I'm like, are you sure? Like, whatever you want to be, everything's fine. Guys, girls, whatever. Because I was so stressed about making sure I didn't put him into any kind of box, that I probably oversold it. And he went right back in the closet because I was overselling my support. So when he did come out, the day before he turned 16, he came out, and he had this whole long thing that he texted me, his coming out. Which I always thought was very interesting, and I still do, because I'm the one that's been trying to push you to be gay this whole time. He texted me. But for me, in my journey, he didn't have to come out the closet to me. Whoever he brought home was fine. My only rules were I don't want that person to be dumb or mean. Those are my only 2 rules. But it's something he felt he needed to do. So that's fine. And for other parents, like I said, I know that my journey has been a little bit different. But for other parents who maybe don't have that academic part of it, or who don't think they know anyone, the lowest fidelity thing that you can do to learn, that I always tell people, I swear to God, just find people on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok that are part of these groups and just follow them. Just make it a part of your everyday life. That's the lowest fidelity thing you can do, but it changes your outlook, because you can no longer say, I don't know anyone. You can no longer say they're so different. They're not, right? Everyone in these communities are just like us. They have wants and loves and dreams and fears, and it shows. And this is the lowest thing. You can always go get books and you can find all these thoughts. It's great if that's your style. But the lowest fidelity thing you can do, and it shows support to those that you love, is do this. Start learning things. And then the second thing I always tell people, especially parents, be okay making mistakes. You're gonna mess up. I still mess up. I still use the wrong phrase, or he'll have to correct me. I'll use the wrong pronoun because I just forgot. For one of his friends, their pronoun is they, and I'll flip and say she, because they've just switched their pronoun or just came out of the closet with their pronoun being different. It's just a slip of the tongue. He corrects me, I go, I'm sorry, they, and I keep going. I don't belabor it, but I just know that I'm going to continue to make mistakes, but I'm continuing to learn and grow. And that's the biggest thing the parent can do, is just be open to those mistakes and the correction, because there's going to be correction, and that's okay. You can't know everything about every group all the time, especially for this thing that's so organic and growing and changing all the time. You have to just accept that. Not sure if I answered all of your questions.
You did. So I have a follow-up. Do you have any fears for your son?
I was thinking about that. Do I have any fears for him? I think my biggest fear is that, because people always want to put, you have to justify, especially if you're bisexual, right? You have to justify and you have to explain. And it's not just a stop on my way to gay. And if it is, that's okay too, right? There's always this explanation they have to do in this justification. I'm so worried that he's going to spend so much time justifying his experience and justifying his life that he's not going to live it. Mm-hmm. He's just going to spend all of this time justifying himself as a bisexual, mixed young man who wears nail polish and wants to wear skirts and pants and do all of these things that doesn't really fit into any box. He's just not going to be able to experience his life. That's my fear.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So as we talk about fear or safe spaces, Alice, do you feel like high school is a safe space for LGBTQIA teens?
For me, it's kind of a yes and no. I don't know about New Albany High School because I'm just new there, but I would say it's your experience. It's the kids there, not most likely the the school, like staff, the teachers, maybe the teachers sometimes, but the students there, because I know bullying is a big thing, and people get made fun of for being gay or transgender, and especially like if you're a person of color, you will get made fun of, not only for your race, but for the community you're in. So I would just say for the students to learn, to educate themselves, to just take a step back and realize that they're just living as everyone else is, and that they're also human beings, and that it's just life. And for like the administrators or counselors or teachers, I would say to like try to encourage the students. Like if you see someone being bullied for being who they are, maybe just tell them that it's okay. Try to make a small change in their day. I don't know. It depends on the school sometimes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So it's Pride Month, and the one thing that I see a lot of, that I have an issue with, and we talked about this earlier, are businesses that are capitalizing on pride, right? And so you see the Pride T-shirts, you know, they start selling in May, some in April. We've got Pride candles. We've got all these things that are Pride. And so anything that you can put a rainbow in on, they seem to sell. What are better ways, and this is really important because I think people need to figure this out, and it doesn't look like they have. What are better ways for businesses to support the Pride movement without commercializing on it? Alex, do you want to jump in?
Sure. And I'm going to look at this from a little bit of a different angle, because I am a PR person, and I have
that's great.
I have done civic work for a long time, and there was a point I wanted to make about bullying, but I'll come back to that.
We can do that and we'll come back.
Well, I was just for Alice. So many years ago, I was hired by Stonewall Columbus as a contractor to do some PR work for them. And they had a series of anti-bullying vigils that were held in different places. One of them was held in Goodale Park, and it was for students. And then we also did an anti-bullying student art show at Columbus Museum of Art. And the students created artwork about their experiences being bullied. And I think because it was held at CMA, it had a little bit more clout. But my wheels are kind of turning now. What are some things that the school could do here? Because I think that there were some students, maybe, hopefully, who could have been causing some of that bullying, who actually saw some of the art. And sometimes art speaks in a way that words can't. And these vigils and these art shows that we did created energy that was real and created moments. We were talking about moments before. And so it just got me thinking about what are some things that could be done. And sometimes David knows this, I sometimes like to go to art, and I know he does too. We have that in common. But it was an interesting way to interpret and express how bullying feels, literally on canvas for all the students to see. And, you know, it was powerful. And the same thing at Goodale Park, we had, 1,000 people with candles and moments of silence. And you light a candle, and then you light the person's candle next to you. And then all of a sudden it's sunset, and then it's dark, and you look around and you see this sea of candles outside of the park, and you think about how that affects people, person to person. So I was just thinking there might be some new and kind of different ways. New Albany always talks about being innovative, right? maybe there are some ways to approach these issues from an angle that doesn't use words, that doesn't use lectures or speeches, but art. So it was just a thought. So I'm sorry.
That sounds like a great project. That sounds like a great project for Peace Week, Alice. That would be an awesome project.
Yeah, it does. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we're going to have Mr. Arthurs reach out to Alex to make that happen.
Okay, well, now if it's okay, I will quickly comment on the corporate question and then leave it for other people to comment. Precious made a wonderful suggestion about people following people on Instagram or on social media just to start learning about things. So I had this corporate question, and I was on Instagram today, and a friend of mine who's a multimedia artist who used to live in Columbus but has since moved to Michigan posted about this very issue today. And his post struck me so deeply that I am going to paraphrase it. And his name is Brian Ream, and on Instagram, his handle is Birchwater. This is what he posted today. And again, I'm paraphrasing. Thank you to the corporations embracing and marketing Pride Month. Thank you for the images and the merchandise flooding the screens and shelves of America. You know why I'm grateful? Those shelves and screens are also in rural America. They are in homes and hometowns that offer zero support or affirmation. The positive imagery and visibility saves lives. That media reflection of acceptance can be enough to push a questioning person to further explore healthy options. Pride has become a commodity, and that's because it has value. We as a people are seen as a monetary asset because we are being seen.
So, I'm sorry, Alex.
Oh, no. I thought that was
that.
so well said.
Yeah.
It is very well said, but I want the corporations to go one step forward. I don't want them to capitalize and benefit from generations of people's pain. I want all of the money they make from those campaigns to go directly to the Trevor Project and other groups like it, Women Building Women. I want it to go through every dime they make on it. I want it to go there. And I want them to say that so other people can say, oh, now I'm learning about Women Building Women. So I love what he said, but I want that extra step. I don't want them to stop.
And I think, and David, you feel free to jump in, but I think for some corporations, this is a step-by-step thing.
Sure.
And this might be step one for some of them. And so we need to allow them that. And I know that there are so many specific and detailed ways that they can help. Part of it is asking for it. Part of it is educating them. And Karen, I'm sure you can speak to this much more eloquently than I can. But from where I'm sitting in this moment, knowing that these symbols are being broadcast all over, to me, that is step one. And I'm not going to, look against that, but try to, okay, let's build on that. Let's find some tactical things that we can do and things that we can ask for and ways that we can teach and go from there. And I'll be quiet now.
You don't have to. I think you make an incredible point, and it's something that I talk about quite often in my work. It often feels when I'm working with corporations, but especially and I hate to be an ageist, but especially younger generations like Gen Z and younger Gen X, where they feel like there's just this one window for everyone to change and to get on the right foot, right? And to your point, Alex, everyone has to take the first step, and they have to learn and they have to move at the speed that they need to for sustainability. And if everyone just did that performative thing and that was it, because sometimes that's all the time you have to do it, then we would get nowhere. So I think it's very important to acknowledge that we're at the beginning, there's one step, and then we go further. And to Precious's point, what does further look like? When we start giving that money back. And do you plan it as that is just those products are for the good of the LGBTQIA community, and it's great PR for you, and people know where your heart is. But if you're putting it to your bottom line and you're looking at, oh, we have to comp next June because we did these numbers, then I think it's time for you to start thinking another way. But I do agree we have to start somewhere. Karen, I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
My only thought is I am so excited when I see these initiatives happening, and I'm right there with you, Kimberly. I'm right there with you, Precious, and Alexandra as well. I think we all come from this mindset, maybe not you, Alice, we're talking about people over 17 here, where we have this mindset of, oh, it's so great to just get a foot in the door. And I have come to this realization following my years in corporate America that we don't just want a foot in the door. We want the house to open all the windows, all the doors, and let's approach it from every single angle we can. I mean, in this conversation for me, what companies should be doing is actively pursuing the right representation in their leadership, where someone who comes from a certain community can feel like they're represented. Pride is every month. It's not just June. Black History Month is not just February. That's right. And this is what we need to be talking about. So let's air out the house. We need to stop being okay with just a foot in the door anymore. It's going to take us forever to get to the conclusion of this. That's all I have to say.
I'll tell you what, I'm Team Karen. I will marry Karen tomorrow, please.
Mic drop.
Karen.
Yeah, inclusion is everybody, right? Inclusion is everybody. I get that. So to that point, though, for companies who are struggling, like when they've struggled in every sense of inclusion, right? They've struggled. I don't know what to say when I'm talking to my Black employees. I don't know what to say when I'm talking to my LGBTQ employees. I don't know what to say. If I don't say anything, I'm afraid to say anything. It would seem inauthentic because I don't know what to say. The words might be wrong, right? And so what do you say to companies who feel like I haven't done anything in the past, so if I do something now, it's going to seem inauthentic? What can you say that will give them some guidance on how they can make that first step and then keep going?
I want that to be their first step. We haven't done anything in the past. We apologize for that. This is our next step. I want them to acknowledge it. It's when they come out and act as if they've been doing this whole time, as if they've always been Team Brown, Black, and gay. Just acknowledge it. We all start from somewhere. To Alice's point earlier, we all start from somewhere. Acknowledge it, and then we can all move forward. That's what I want. But I'm not a PR person. I'm just a regular mom. So,
Alex, David, do you have any suggestions?
So have any of you heard of ohiobusinesscompetes.org? That is a website that was created in partnership by Equality Ohio, HRC Columbus, Trans Ohio, and the local ACLU. Right now, 1,050 Ohio businesses have signed. This to me would be a very, like, step one, put up your rainbow sticker. Step two, get on ohiobusinesscompetes.org and sign the petition. It's free, it's easy, and it is a way for that organization, which is a nonpartisan organization, to try to get protections at the state level, because the more businesses that sign this petition, the more power they will have to leverage. So to me, that's a very simple action.
Is that ohcompetes.org? I think Alex froze. David, do you know? Is it OH or OH?
I know what she's talking about, and I've looked it up. Alex?
Oh, there it is. She's back. Oh, Alex, is it ohcompetes.org or Ohio?
It's ohiobusinesscompetes.org.
Okay, I'm going to post it.
And it's again, a very simple, easy thing that could be step two, right? Steps 3, 4, and 5 are going to get, a little more. But to me, that's a very simple way of showing support. and something that you could tell employees, hey, this is important to us, and we signed this. We signed up for it. You can go on, you can see all the businesses in Ohio that participate.
I'm going to sign it. That's great. Thank you. Okay. So, Precious, we're coming down. We have 10 minutes left. This is the part where we give people advice and resources and information to help them go forward and make change. So I'm going to start with you, Precious. Are there resources that you recommend for parents that can help them on their journey? Because you did the work before, but not everybody's there. So what do you recommend?
All right, so I recommend two things. One is not necessarily a resource in the conventional sense. I recommend therapy. For you, your child, your family member, I highly recommend it, especially if you are having a difficult time wrapping your head around this is not the view or vision or life you saw for your child. Therapy helps work through that. Your child may need support figuring out who they are outside of this label or within this label. So I highly recommend therapy as a resource. There are fantastic websites, which I'll give you, Kimberly, to post later on how they can find LGBTQ friendly therapists. There are services that'll help you find them, especially nationally. A little bit harder when you're POC and you're looking for someone POC that's also that, but they are there and they are around. So please do that. And then I will also give you some IG handles of folks that have taken on the work of educating people who are in the queer community and are taking on the work. So I'll drop some of those names as well, because I still stand very much by that. Just get the view into your life. That's not what someone else is creating. Get an authentic view into the queer community. It's a good time. So I highly recommend joining.
Great, thank you. I'm going to throw it to Karen. Our resources.
For us, what we have found most successful is partnerships. I think businesses really have to show humility and show that they don't know everything. Showing humility and being okay with not knowing everything and reaching out to community organizations to say, as Precious said before, we don't know everything. We maybe haven't done this before, but we're willing to take the steps now. Reaching out to organizations like ours, the work that David and Alexandra is doing, and asking questions and being vulnerable enough to try and learn. Working with companies like yours, Kimberly, like Bumbershoot, where you're working on educational programming for diversity and inclusivity initiatives. There are companies that are worth billions of dollars that don't understand that there are small community resources they can reach out to and really make a difference by bringing these resources into their companies. So I think it's about trying not to function in a vacuum, being open enough to try something new, not just making donations and putting commercials out there and think you're doing enough. I think there need to be community forums that these companies are having. I think they need to speak to individuals and people, focus groups. And that's really how we've been evolving our research. I mean, our organization, Women Building Women, has evolved since 3 months ago just because of things we've learned over time. We're constantly correcting ourselves. We're constantly trying to learn something new. And Precious, again, you said before, be okay with making mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to use the wrong pronoun at some point. We're all going to put out a press release with a typo that you're going to have to speak to. But I think surrounding yourself with a nice group of organizations that are your allies, that's what's going to make the difference in the end. Not a donation, not putting a pride flag on your Instagram and thinking it's enough. These conversations need to continue to happen. And so for us, the things we need is we need access to mentees that can come through our program. So if you know of anyone within the silos we mentioned, transgender women of color, women who are returning citizens, at-risk males that might need our help, send them our way. And if we're not the people who can help them, we're in partnership with enough organizations that can help them. And I think we all feel that way, is that we have positioned ourselves to be resources to so many others. That's what I would suggest people do. Open up your doors.
Thank you. Thank you. Alice, any recommendations, words of encouragement?
I just want to say to Karen, that sounds really, really good. I think that is going to help a lot of people. For kids, people my age, I would say, like, if you know someone a part of the LGBTQ community, and you don't know how to talk to them, ask them what's okay, ask them their pronouns, ask them any questions you have in a respectable manner. Don't be rude about it. Doing your own research is good too. Maybe talking to your parents about how they feel about the subject, and then building your own opinion of it outside of your house, outside of your religion, outside of your parents. Yeah, and just being open-minded.
Thank you.
Okay.
David?
So I think for Pride New Albany, with Alexandra and I just having started this, well, Alex having started it and me following along, we're still in that learning curve. And I think for us, our strategy has been to treat others as we would like to be treated. And that includes city officials and the city of New Albany. We have treated them, I think, very kind, very respectful. And I think that is turning out to be a positive for us and for the LGBT community in New Albany. And I think it's been very positive for the city itself. I think that's shown by the fact that we now have banners on Market Street, the first ever.
Congratulations.
Yesterday, we had the proclamation by the city of New Albany a few weeks ago, which was the first of its kind. And working with the city and city leaders, it was a little more difficult, I think, than what I expected. But I think at the end of the day, they are open. And I think that the city is growing, and there are some growing pains to be had from this growth. But I think at the end of the day, we have made some significant strides. And I know that we're going to continue to work hard on getting some things done and making the city better and more inclusive. And Alex, anything?
I think the only thing that I would mention is that from day one, we wanted to foster a sense of belonging for LGBTQ plus residents of all ages. And the middle school now has an LGBTQ plus student group with 50 members. When we started this group in 2019, there was not a middle school group. That has happened since we first formed. That group is actually larger than the high school SAGA group, which is sexuality and gender awareness. And that teacher liaison of that group, her name is Sarah Schoen, and she's a member of our Pride New Albany committee, as is Patrick Galloway, who's the communications director for the schools. I think that we always, from day one, wanted to have direct contact with the students and make sure that their voices were being heard and that we were partnering with them in everything that we're doing. So, for example, right now, the kids are making Pride-themed handmade bookmarks for the book display that went up today at the library that will be up all month. The students are making ribbons to hand out at our farmers market table on June 24th, which will be the first ever Pride New Albany Day. But really for the student groups to voice their concerns to us, to talk to us about what it is that they think that they need or that they want or that they like or they don't like. And for us, I think, it's something that's always on our mind to make sure that what we're doing is available and appropriate for all ages.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. This has been a wonderful conversation, informative and enlightening, as I knew it would be. Inclusion is the heart of everything that I do. I think the world is a better place when we understand each other and we can work together and be true neighbors, friends, and family. And I just appreciate all of the information that you shared this afternoon. I know that it was very helpful. And I look forward to having more of these conversations with you. So thank you all. And everyone who's watching, please remember, it's about empathy. It's about understanding and being a support to other people. And remember that Pride is a movement. It's more than just a parade. So thanks for joining us. And I hope to see you again very, very soon. Woman to Woman comes every Wednesday, and we'll have lots of good conversation for you. So thanks so much for joining us. It's been a great, great afternoon.